Real Clear Politics reverses their decision on what the election would have been coming up on election night, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there. Bill Barr has authorized the DOJ to start investigating allegations of voter fraud with criminal charges, which may change a lot of things coming up here before December. Several instances of voter fraud are being logged, with various people actually going into investigation for it. So we'll talk a bit about what's going on there. And Morgan Wallen decides that it's time to open up his concerts after the massive shoulder-to-shoulder demonstrations that we saw all around the country. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning to my fellow deplorables, my fellow people who question the government, and my fellow people who just generally want to see liberty continue on. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to today. A bunch of stuff has changed over the last 24 hours, and it's interesting to see, especially what has changed while I was on last night with Ed's World. So, we're in for a good ride, we're in for a fun ride, and a bunch of stuff is happening here that we need to see, and you need to see what's going on in your government. Hey, maybe our next few elections might be somewhat above board, instead of people getting to sit back and question whether or not anything is above board, and questioning whether or not there are, in fact, pallets of emergency Democrat voters, or votes rather, sitting in the back of trucks. Wow, I'm losing my train of thought early today. So, before we get into any of this though, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The R-Rated Conservative, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, and The Freckles and Brit Show. Come on over there, pick up some of our swag, help us support great creators, and check out all of my creators' other shows as well. Ed's World Gaming, The Know Nothing Party, Shooting the Shit, all kinds of fun stuff over there. We have great creators, and they put on a lot of content for you guys. So help us support them, help us get them out to the point where they can make a career out of creating content for you guys, and just help us out all around. We'd love to see you over there. All right, let's get up into the stocks here and see what we got going on the markets for the day. It looks like it stayed above board, almost at 30,000 there for just a second. 29,837 at the start of opening trading here. Kind of wishy-washy through there, but pretty much a flat line throughout the rest of the day. And there's indication still that the futures are going to go up, which is going to be exciting for a lot of people to see, because that means that their retirements are going to go up. I know people say, well, the stock market, that's nothing, just something for rich people. Well, your 401k and most of your other retirement plans are tied to the stock market. So keep that in mind as you mock this as being something for the rich, because I'm sure that even if you are in that age range where it doesn't matter to you what happens with your retirement, somebody you know probably wants to retire at some point here. All right, let's keep going. From CNBC to start off the day. Yeah, we're going to have to fly through this so I can get this tab closed, because that is just eating my computer memory right now. RCP won't let you look with your ad blocker on. If you archive it, it just sets where I wanted to show off to the side of the screen where you can't see. And they have so many ads on their website, it just eats processor. And the old HP, she's not holding up too well, but she will shortly. She'll get a replacement soon. Let's keep going here. Dow futures rise 200 points, but NASDAQ futures fall 1% as market rotation out of tech continues. From Fred Imbert and Yoon Lee. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was set to build on its big Monday rally, while big technology stocks were headed for another loss as positive vaccine news sparks a market rotation out of names that thrived during the pandemic into stocks linked to an economic recovery. Futures for Dow rose 216 points, or 0.7%. S&P 500 futures were flat, and futures tracking the tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 fell 1.4% amid the ongoing investor rotation. Monday's gains drove the Dow and the S&P 500 to new intraday record highs. The 30 stock average closed more than 800 points higher, posting its biggest one-day gain since June 5th. It surged more than 1,600 points at one point before the weakness in the tech sector put pressure on the broader market. The S&P 500 gained 1.2%. While cyclical stocks led the market advance on Monday, the tech-heavy NASDAQ Composite fell 1.5% as investors dumped some of the popular stay-at-home plays such as Amazon, Zoom Video, and Netflix. The NASDAQ finished Monday's session near its session low. Amazon shares were down another 2% in pre-market trading Tuesday after falling 5% on Monday. Zoom dropped 17% on Monday and traded 2% lower in the pre-market Tuesday. Netflix dropped 0.6% after dropping 8% on Monday. The stay-at-home trade, which has led the market higher for most of this year, may be falling out of favor, said Lindsay Bell, chief investment strategist at Ally Invest. There's still a good long-term case for tech, but it may not outpace the rest of the market like it has since March. U.S. pharmaceutical giant Pfizer and German biotech firm BioNTech announced Monday that their coronavirus vaccine was more than 90% effective in preventing COVID-19. The news sent travel stocks soaring as the recovery of these companies depended on a successful economic reopening. American Airlines, Delta, and United all jumped more than 15%, while Carnival, Norwegian, and Royal Caribbean surged more than 25% each because, and as I remind you all on this, they wanted to hold it closed until they got that nice, clear, clean Biden win. And we'll talk about what's happening with there because I think they shot their wad early. They sat there and said, economy's open, the economy's going to open, we're gonna get Biden to have a record stock market. Oh, vaccine. I sure as God hope my nephew and nieces aren't watching this right now. I sure as hell hope that, but yeah, they shot their wad way early on this. Because they thought for sure that CNN told them they had the mandate and they were going to win. And winning is everything right now, so they could come back and start making sure that Biden never had the coronavirus hanging up over his head. And now, here we are. And the Donald is even questioning that. I've got an article on that one later on today. So we'll see what happens off of this. Let's have a quick look at Market Watch before we get into the big news for the day. Dow futures rise 200 points, but tech stocks set to slip as vaccine progress sparks rotation. From Mark DeCamber. U.S. stocks were likely to open mixed on Tuesday, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average set to add to Monday's rally that helped it carve out its first all-time high since February 12th. However, the NASDAQ may be headed for another loss as progress towards remedies and treatments for the coronavirus has investors selling some of the biggest pandemic-era winners and using the proceeds to buy assets that might benefit the most from vaccines. Futures for the Dow Jones Industrial Average were up 209 points, or 0.7% at 29,252. Those for the S&P 500 were sliding 5.5 points, or 0.2% to reach 35,3850, while NASDAQ 100 futures were down at a more substantial 173.75 points, or 1.5% to reach 11,640.25. Remember the day that we were sitting here watching this together and I was reading this to you guys and I found out what the S&P stood for? And I was still blown away. I'm still blown away by that. I've been watching news for 30 years, and I had no idea that S&P was Standards & Poor. On Monday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 834.57 points, or 3%, to finish at 29,157.97, booking its best one-day percentage gain since June 5th. Intraday, it was almost to 30,000, by the way. The S&P 500 added 41.06 points, or 1.2%, closing at 35,5050, its second highest finish since September 2nd. The NASDAQ Composite flipped negative in the afternoon trade, ending with an 181.45 point loss, or 1.5%, at 11,713.78, or off 2.8% from its September 2nd closing record. So that's what we're seeing up in the stocks, and hopefully your futures and your investments and your retirements are all well stocked at this point here. Let's keep going for the big news for the day, and we can finally get the RCP tab closed off of here. As you can see, let's come back over to the presidential race on this. Pennsylvania has gone back into gray. North Carolina and Georgia remain in gray, and Arizona has been called out into gray, meaning that we are back down to 259, 214 for Trump-Pence. That means it's anybody's ball game at this point. And we will see what comes back out of this here. And hopefully we will see this state, especially this state, and this state move back into the gray as well. But as of right now, it is a jump ball and it's anybody's game. So we'll see. And I've got one article from RCP to go with this. And I want to point something else off to this too. First off, yes, they shot their wad way too early. They decided that they were going to call it right away, that they didn't want to come out and know any of the facts off of this. Let me move because, well, actually I can scroll up here for you guys to see because I had my cursor sitting out here where you guys couldn't see. But, yep, there's Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, all back up into the gray, bringing us down to 259, 214. Look at this. It's glorious, and people are going to start melting down over this too, especially if the other news networks are pressured to push this back into anybody's jump ball territory. We've got ourselves a race, and we've actually got ourselves a lot of stuff to report on as well in the coming weeks, which means, we've got until December 14th to certify anything, which means those of us who do news coverage, especially independent coverage that aren't sitting here trying to pull the CNN narrative off of this, are going to have a good few weeks. And a lot of people are going to look to our networks for news rather than going to the big three, even though I sit here and read from the big three every day. I'm not sucked in by the narrative that they're trying to do, but yes, as of right now, it's anybody's ball. But one of the other things that came off of our network here, the R-rated conservative pointed out, in some cases that we saw, a lot of the ballots only had the presidency filled out and none of the down ballot seats. But in a lot of the other ones, especially with the video that we saw yesterday of the dude that was just sitting there and filling out ballots before he stamped them and stuffed them in the envelope and put them back over into the machine. Is this going to have an effect on down ballot races? Is this going to change the down ballot game? Are we going to see some of these down ballots shift? And are we going to see different numbers in the Senate? Maybe even a Republican pickup or two, bringing it back to 53, 54, 55 if the down ballot changes, especially in places like Georgia that's got big runoffs. I know that Pennsylvania doesn't have any senators up this time, but Arizona does. So does that change anything off of that point? Does it change it in Michigan, where they've got a senator sitting up there that managed to win? Do we actually see some pickups from this? We'll see from that. And the House, Democrats have already lost 4 seats in the House minimum, with a couple more yet to be called. But what happens there? Do we see other House seats flip? Do we see the mandate to govern coming up out of the House for Republicans? I don't really care what the government does as long as they're not impeding in my freedom. But do Republicans see the mandate? Do they get their mandate back? All of this is going to be investigated as we sit back and see what happens in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Arizona, since they are still back up on the table. And we'll see what happens with that. All right, I've got one article from RCP to go with this. I just wanted to show you guys what the map looked like here. This is an opinion piece, commentary from RCP. The media should not have called this election, from Andy Puzder. Joe Biden has made it clear that he will do his best to unify the country following an election in which more than 71 million Americans, nearly half the electorate, voted for Trump. It is an admirable goal, but any chance of that happening depends on the American people having confidence that the election outcome resulted from a fair and honest process. Though never perfect, our electoral system has generally instilled confidence for the past 231 years, which is why it has worked so well. Under the contentious circumstances of this election, the traditional media's decision to declare a victor before the official process has run its course has diminished the confidence of Trump voters in the announced result. Even if the declaration of a Biden victory is found to be accurate, the call was premature and will make the effort to unify our nation far more difficult. No more difficult than the fact that these people have called us irredeemable, unreconcilable racists for the last 4 years, and said that we need to be disallowed from common society. And I will admit, I was a Trump supporter the first time. I voted for him wholeheartedly, with pride the first time. And of course the second time I voted for him, but I had to be drug kicking and screaming to get there. You guys all know what's up with that. I told you about that. Like millions of voters from both sides of the political aisle, I'm sensitive to the needs for a definitive election outcome, untainted by irregularities or allegations of fraud. Even with razor-thin margins separating the two candidates in key states, we should be able to arrive at a final result that both sides can accept. President Trump is contesting the reported results in those states where the race is close, and the conduct of election officials and the processes used appear to be suspicious. Seems kind of sus. He is clearly within his rights to contest the results. His supporters generally want him to do so, allowing the legal process to run its course is the only way to foster the unity that Biden seeks. Unity is much less likely, however, when the media simply declares a winner before the matter is resolved. In 2012, many Republicans felt disappointed when Mitt Romney lost to President Obama. Very few felt cheated. That will not be the case in 2020 if the current president's supporters believe that the media preempted the official process as to disparage or prevent a full investigation of the president's claims. And Andy, you are absolutely right on this. You are 100% correct on everything that you have said in this article off of this. And yes, it goes along. And I mentioned the fact that yes, these people went out and where was I going with that? I completely lost my train of thought on that one. The media came out and said, yes, the election is over. Just accept the results because we told you what the results. I mean, the New York Times had that tweet out, and they quickly deleted it that said, it falls to the media to tell you what the results of the race are going to be. Don't bother doing your own investigation. It comes from the media. We are the ones that are going to tell you what the results are going to be. And now we're sitting back here wondering what happened with this and what this actually means. And one of the other things that I think I talked about this yesterday, but one of the other big things that comes out of races like this is the fact that, yes, under Romney conceded. So it was just a matter of going through counting the votes for a formality, and then nobody went back and challenged any of it. John McCain conceded, which meant it was going through the formality of counting up the votes, putting the election results in, and nobody had to question it. Hillary conceded. And then like 2 days later said Russia stole the election from her and spent the next 4 years saying that. But once she said, I concede, Donald Trump wins, it just became a formality of going through counting the votes, not paying attention to anything else that went along with there, and going on with your day. I do think that there is a fear at this point, with all of the urge to get Trump to concede, that there's a fear that they're going to find out what happened under the Barack Obama election, under the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump election, that they're going to see what happened in some of these past elections and see what happened with the system, how the media and, quite frankly, the swamp has corrupted the system. That's what I see out of this. They're in a hurry to get Donald Trump to concede, so they stop looking into these things, so they stop investigating. And you go all over Twitter right now, too, and we've got so many people coming out here and saying, well, just concede, Donald. Just accept it. Just accept it. These same people who spent the last 4 years saying, election is stolen. Election is stolen. Question the election. Question the integrity of the election. Recount everything for the next 4 years. Investigation. Could Russia have stolen it here? These same people now are saying, just accept it. Don't question a goddamn thing. So that's what we see coming up out of this. And yeah, Andy Puzder, you are 100% right on this here, because the media coming out and saying, oh, it's definitive, it's over. And now we're out here looking at a question as to whether or not it's definitive, or even if some of these states should have been called to begin with, or if some of them will get overturned on top of all of that. We're sitting here seeing all of this. I mean, that's, what is that, 30 votes? 30 electoral votes that just got robbed from Biden, from what the media told us. What was that, like 292, I think, was the final number? And all of that got pulled back away from him now to a point that, yes, they could turn around and push this. I don't know if there's enough there to push it back for Trump, with only 214 there. But the fact that they're just not calling it, uncalling it, we'll see what happens off of this, and if other states get overturned as well. So a lot of stuff happening just in this. And going on to what I had said about just trusting what the media had to say, Clint over from Liberty Lockpod tweeted out, to the Liberty people out there dismissing the voter fraud claims like, bruh, is this trust the government day? Because there were a lot of left-leaning libertarians out there that just decided it was time to get up and accept the election results and not think a thought about whether or not the government is telling you the truth or not. And then he went on to tweet, imagine just for a moment the government and the news media are lying to you. And then I said something off this here. That was the nice part about the Trump presidency. Those who say that Barack Obama, I'm typoed that. Those who saw Barack Obama as a deity hated the presidency again, which they need to. The presidency should not have an effect on your life, and you should be questioning the government. You should be questioning every piece of information that's brought to you. I am ashamed right now to say that I was still in my little neocon phase when Trump was elected in 2016. So I accepted the Trump election without any question, and there was a lot of stuff to question out of that election. And yes, after all the information came out, it is apparent that he won fairly handily in the 2016 election. But yes, I absolutely should have been questioning that a lot more. And everyone should be questioning this one on both sides. If you want a free and fair election. Now, if you just want power, then yeah, absolutely, just take it at their word and accept everything that they tell you and just nothing to see here. But if you actually want to see an integral election that Russia or China or Iran or anybody else in the world can steal as they claimed for so long, then yes, question everything, whether your guy wins or not. Let's keep going. From ABC News. I'm rooting hard for you as Trump remains defiant. Here's how past one-term presidents conceded. From Dina Zaru. As President Trump remained defiant after Joe Biden became the apparent winner of the 2020 presidential election on Saturday, photos of the handwritten letter outgoing President George H.W. Bush wrote to President-elect Bill Clinton on January 20th, 1993 flooded social media. Of course it did. Bush, the incumbent president who lost his bid for a second term to the Democratic governor of Arkansas after an intense fight, gave the heartfelt letter to Clinton on his inauguration day. He not only offered his advice, but expressed his support as his opponent moved into the White House. Dear Bill, when I walked into this office just now, I felt the same sense of wonder and respect that I felt 4 years ago. I know you will feel that too, the letter began. I wish you great happiness here. There will be very tough times, made even more difficult by criticism you may not think is fair, like raping an intern. I'm not a very good one to give advice, but yeah, that's an understatement of the year. But just don't let the critics discourage you or push you off course. Warhawk, he continued. Your success now is our country's success. I'm rooting hard for you. Good luck, George. Clinton and Bush became great friends later, and weeks before the former president's death on November 30th, 2018, Clinton read the letter to presidential historian Mark Updegrove. Yeah, because they're both parts of the same fucking swamp. I love that letter, Clinton told ABC News. I thought that it was vintage George Bush. I thought he meant it, but I also thought that he was trying to be a citizen in the highest sense of the word. I was profoundly moving to me, personally. The letter came after Bush delivered a conciliatory and hopeful concession speech on November 4th, 1992, one day after Clinton was projected to win the election. Here's the way I see it, and the country should see it, that the people have spoken, and we respect the majesty of the democratic system, Bush said in the opening remarks, vowing to work with the upcoming administration in a smooth transition and urging his supporters to stand behind our new president. Trump is set to join Bush in a small group of incumbent presidents who lost their bids for second term, excluding presidents who ran or only ran for one term and those who ran after being appointed to the office when a president could no longer serve. There are only 9 one-term presidents in U.S. history who lost their re-election bids. Trump joins this really unique club, and I think that uniqueness of that experience heightens already pre-existing tensions, presidential historian and ABC News contributor Leah Wright Rigueur said. So, for presidents who can concede quickly and without rancor, without vitriol, it's important for setting the tone of what democracy and what democratic nations do. So yes, they are urging him at this point to just give up. Don't fight this. Just give up. We beat you. Don't worry about how we beat you. We beat you. Just give up. Give the concession. Give Joe Biden the presidency. And the pressure is there because I've got this feeling that there's some other stuff going on in the background that they don't want you to see. Trump falsely declared on election night, when he had a lead in several key states, that he won the race and alleged without evidence, after the count started to swing Biden's way, that the election was being stolen from him and that fraud had been committed. So we will see what happens off of this here, and honestly, even if he doesn't wind up winning, well, first off, I will be looking over my shoulder constantly to make sure that President Kamala isn't about to throw me in prison, but on the other side of that, I will be making preparations to go into straight up gaming content because I've got a feeling that dissent against the government is about to be a crime. So that's what we are seeing off of this. But I've also got this feeling that there is something going on behind the scenes that they don't want other people to find out about. So come on, just concede. So we don't have to go through here and hand recount and get investigations into the votes. So, interesting one because of this from the Daily Wire. Gun stores struggling to keep firearms stocked as election surge continues, from Ash Shao. The year 2020 saw record gun sales thanks to the coronavirus and fears of Democrat gun control policies. In the run-up to the general election, a surge began as polls suggested Democratic nominee Joe Biden would easily win the election over President Trump. It is still unclear who actually won the election. Media outlets have called it for Biden, but Trump has pursued numerous legal actions to contest the results in several states. Still, gun purchases continue to soar, with gun shop owners telling media outlets that they can't keep their shelves stocked. Cam Edwards of Bearing Arms reported that part of the surge is due to Biden already making plans to use executive and administrative actions to target legal gun owners, since it looks like even if he does end up president, he likely won't have control of the U.S. Senate to enact his agenda. Because of Democrat gun control threats, gun owners have seen their sales surge in recent weeks, and that is continuing. Chris Harding, the owner of H&H Tactical in Exeter, Pennsylvania, told Fox 56 that his store has been crazy every week it's getting worse. He told the outlet business was steady on Sunday afternoon and that 60% of his customer base is now first-time gun buyers. They're buying anything that they can get their hands on: high-capacity magazines, guns, and ammo, anything else they're calling assault weapons. A year ago, before all this started, we would roughly sell 2,000 rounds a month. Now we're selling between 50 to 70,000 rounds a week, Harding told the outlet. Customers told Fox 56 that they worry about a Democrat White House limiting Second Amendment rights. Everyone should have the right to defend themselves, their home, and their family. For somebody to just come in and take that away, it's just not right, said one customer. Well, flintlock pistols and muskets and oh my. Harding dismissed concerns that the Democrat administration could take guns away, however. I don't want to become a felon, but we do sell other things. We sell a lot of body armor and things that law enforcement agencies use throughout the area. If history prevails, they're not going to be taken away. The physical possibility, there's millions of these things across the country. There would be a complete revolution uprising even if they tried, he said. Nebraska's Panhandle is seeing a similar surge, the Star-Herald reported. Nationwide, sales have skyrocketed, driven by new buyers citing coronavirus pandemic uncertainty, social unrest over police killings of black people, concerns about violence at contested election. Major gun manufacturer Smith & Wesson Brands Incorporated CEO Mark Peter Smith credited 40% of sales to people buying firearms for the first time, according to the September call to investors, the outlet reported. So yes, and absolutely, you get the democracy that you deserve. So question everything. First and foremost, question everything that the government does, that the government tries to do, and question every attempt that the government tries to use to take power. whether by an election or by executive action. Whatever they use to try and claim power, question it. And if you have to, take up arms and defend yourself. That should be your last resort, but if you have to, take up arms and defend yourself. So, good on these people. From Axios. Barr authorizes federal prosecutors to investigate voter fraud allegations from Zachary Basu. AG Bill Barr has authorized U.S. attorneys to conduct investigations into alleged voter fraud if there are clear and apparently credible allegations of irregularities that could change the outcomes of elections or of a federal election in a particular state, AP first reported and Axios can confirm. President Trump has refused to concede the election to President-elect Joe Biden, alleging a conspiracy of widespread voting fraud and corruption by Democratic election officials. He has thus far not provided specific evidence for his claims, which have been shot down by both Democratic and Republican secretaries of state. Barr, who's been long since a target of criticism by Democrats who allege that he's politicized the Justice Department, testified in June that he has no reason to think that the 2020 election will be rigged. He has cast doubt on the reliability of mass mail-in ballots, baselessly claiming foreign adversaries could sabotage the vote, but has cited common sense rather than any specific evidence of fraud. While it is imperative that credible allegations be addressed in a timely and effective manner, it is equally imperative that the department personnel exercise appropriate caution and maintain the department's absolute commitment to fairness, neutrality, and nonpartisanship, Barr wrote in a memo to U.S. attorneys. You are the most senior leaders in the United States Department of Justice, and I trust you to exercise great care and judgment in addressing allegations of voting and vote tabulation irregularities. While serious allegations should be handled with great care, spacious, speculative, fanciful, or far-fetched claims should not be a basis for initiating federal inquiries. States have until December 8th to settle controversies and disputes over elections, including recounts and lawsuits before members of the Electoral College meet to vote on December 14th. The Trump campaign has requested a recount in Wisconsin and has filed dozens of lawsuits in battleground states. And that is the memo. So definitely something to watch for, something to keep up with and see. And yes, we've been memeing about the fact that this has been going on forever. The memes are out there. Emergency Democrat ballots. I put the meme up on the screen last night. This is something that we've been joking about and possibly have known about for generations at this point. And I've got this feeling that the push to get Trump to concede is because certain actors in the government, and I'm not going to say the left and I'm not going to say the right because I guarantee you that both of them use it, don't want that to be found out about. One of the things that I've been seeing out of these past 4 years, with an outsider coming into the presidency, and with the people becoming more vocal about what they want out of their country and holding their elected officials accountable and buying more guns, is the fact that the idea of a government by the people for the people scares the fuck out of the people that are in power. And that's good, because they should be scared. Every fucking one of them should be scared. All right, let's keep going here. From Newsweek, Democrats criticize Barr for allowing investigations into unsubstantiated voter fraud. From Danielle Villarreal, Republican congressional leaders on social media have refrained from commenting on AG Barr's recent approval to let federal prosecutors investigate yet to be substantiated allegations of voter fraud that President Trump says swung the presidential election in favor of his opponent, Democratic President-elect Joe Biden. Democratic congressional leaders on social media, however, have been strident in their disapproval of Barr's decision. Of course they have, because, as I just said, there's something going on that they don't want you to know about. In a Monday evening tweet, Democratic Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren wrote, A.G. Barr is a corrupt Trump henchman who should have been impeached months ago. If he cared one shred about our democracy, he'd be focused on the peaceful transition of power instead of doing the bidding of a wannabe dictator. Democratic California Representative Ted Lieu wrote in a Monday evening tweet, "Dear Barr," well, here, let's read his tweet directly instead of what Newsweek put on it. "Dear Barr, there's no factual predicate for any mass voter fraud. How do we know? Because the Trump campaign has still not come up with credible allegations, and GOP secretaries of state stand by the results. Stop ignoring the will of the people." What are you afraid of? Let's see, we've got Joe Kennedy. "Bill Barr needs to remember that he answers to us, not the guy actively trying to undermine our democracy." Well, you answer to us, you fuckstick. DOJ career officials now resigning, another secretary fired by tweet. An entire political party willing to damage our democracy out of fear of a man who lost. What a small, scared president we have had. Better days ahead. Mazie Hirono had to weigh in because she's Mazie fucking Hirono. "Bill Barr disgraces his office again by acting like Trump's I don't know that word. We're going to make a note of that, and I'm going to look that word up because I don't know how to pronounce it or what it means. And if I see a word that I don't know what it means, I look it up. Sending U.S. attorneys on a fishing expedition to legitimize baseless conspiracy theories. Come January 20th, it will be a relief to have an AG who will uphold the rule of law on behalf of the American people. One Republican stood out on Monday evening for having tweeted about Barr's decision, Tennessean Senator Marsha Blackburn. She wrote, "Thank you, Attorney General Barr, for ensuring and upholding the integrity of our elections." So, yeah, that's what we're seeing up out of this here. These people are tweeting out and they're blasting at him for this. So we'll see what happens out of that. Let's keep going off of this one because they brought up an interesting point, and that is somebody has quit from the DOJ because of this. DOJ's top election crimes prosecutor quits in protest after Barr tells federal attorneys to probe unsupported allegations of voting irregularities. From Evan Perez. The Justice Department's top election crimes prosecutor resigned on Monday in protest after AG Barr told federal prosecutors that they should examine allegations of voter irregularities before states move to certify results in the coming weeks. Richard Pilger, director of the Elections Crimes Branch in the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section, told colleagues that an email that the Attorney General was issuing an important new policy, abrogating the 40-year-old non-interference policy for ballot fraud investigations in the period prior to elections, becoming certified and uncontested. Pilger also forwarded the memo to colleagues in his resignation letter. Pilger's resignation email didn't make clear whether he plans to stay in the department in another capacity. Barr's densely worded memo had told prosecutors that they could take investigative steps, such as interviewing witnesses during a period that they would normally need permission from the Elections Crimes section. It's not clear what practical effort or effect the policy would have on the election, in which President Trump trails the President-elect Joe Biden by tens of thousands of votes in several key states. Barr didn't provide any indication that the Justice Department has come up with evidence to support Trump's claim of massive voter fraud in last week's election. And I love the way that they're putting this here because Axios put it this way, Newsweek put it this way, and now, of course, CNN is putting it this way, is that Barr is going and investigating unsubstantiated claims of voter fraud. It's unsubstantiated. That's what he's investigating for, to see if there's any substantiation to it. Why are you so afraid of somebody going through and looking into something if it is completely above board, as you say? If it is 100% above board and Biden wins, then Biden wins. And it fucking sucks balls for people like me who can go to prison for dissenting against the government. That sucks absolute, outright, 100% open balls if Biden wins. But we move on with our day. And we look into the election system and we see what was there and what wasn't. if, like I said, if this was all above board, and I confess right at the beginning of today's show, I confess right out off the top, I should have questioned the 2016 election a lot more than I did. Because there were a lot of irregularities with it. Now it's been investigated. And now I can feel comfortable over the fact that Donald Trump won in 2016 pretty handily. But the same people who called for an investigation for 4 years right now, those same people who said that the 2016 election was illegitimate, an election can be stolen, and we should question everything that happened in 2016, are now very, very quick to come out and say, just shut up and accept the election, you fucking bigot. And it's interesting to see, like I said, none of this is about having a voice of by the people, for the people, or the will of the people. This is all about power. And that's what we're seeing from this. Let's keep going. From the New York Post. Trump claims Democrats and the FDA delayed coronavirus vaccine news, from Ben Feuerherd. President Trump on Monday suggested that the Food and Drug Administration and the Democratic Party conspired together to delay the release of the coronavirus vaccine until after the 2020 presidential election. Trump made the charge in a tweet Monday evening, hours after the Pfizer drug company announced an initial analysis of their COVID-19 vaccine showed it to be 90% effective. The US FDA and the Democrats didn't want me to have a vaccine win prior to the election, so instead it came out 5 days later, as I've said all along, Trump wrote. Since his loss to Joe Biden in the 2020 election, which was called on Saturday and uncalled yesterday, Trump has repeatedly said he was cheated out of victory by Democrats who created a widespread voting fraud campaign. Trump has provided no conclusive evidence to back up his claims. And yet, the DOJ is investigating to see if there is conclusive evidence to back up those claims. Let the process work. Oh, but he's just trying to sow discord into the process. You mean like you fucksticks did for the last 4 years? Prior to the election, Trump had said on a number of occasions that the coronavirus vaccine was in the works and would be available to the American people very soon, but did not provide a timeline for when it would happen. The Pfizer vaccine, which was announced the same day the U.S. surpassed 10 million cases of COVID-19, may begin to be administered to the population as soon as later this month, after everybody called the election for Joe Biden. Dr. Anthony Fauci said in a television appearance on Monday, "You have to go through the hoops of making sure that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed about the safety and regularity aspects of it, but we would not be giving the vaccine to people very likely before the end of this year, and that is good news," he said. Fauci added that another vaccine by another drug company could likely also be made available soon. So, and I've talked about this too, because the timing does seem very, very suspect. 2 days after all the major news outlets said, oh, well, Messiah Joe Biden is now our president. All huzzahs be in order. Oh, hey, look, a vaccine that'll take care of the pandemic that racked our country and our economy for the last year. Oh, look, there it is. I've even wondered whether or not it's a placebo at this point. So that's what we see off of that here. I'm not going to say whether or not it was deliberately done that way. It just seems really, really suspicious right now. All right, let's keep going. From KTEM News Radio 14. Doesn't give me a location off of this, but I'm guessing it's somewhere out of Texas. Limestone County social worker faces 137 election fraud cases. From Aaron Savage. At a time when faith in our electoral process is hanging by a thread, it's beyond frustrating to see a story like this emerge, especially here in Texas. The office of the Texas AG The Office of Texas AG Ken Paxton announced late last week that a Limestone County woman faces 134 felony charges after she allegedly used her position as a social worker at a supported living facility to submit voter registration applications for patients without their consent. Kelly Reagan Bruner, an employee at the Mexia State Supported Living Center is accused of submitting applications for 67 residents of the center while acting as their agent. The problem, Paxton's office says, is that Brunner did not have the permission of those residents, many of whom are ineligible to vote in Texas after having been declared completely mentally incapacitated by a court. Under Texas law, only a parent, child, or spouse of a person eligible to vote may act as their agent in order to register them to vote, and only with their consent. Brunner was arrested Monday, November 2nd, after an investigation by the Limestone County Sheriff's Office. Our partners at News 10 report that she was released from the Limestone County Jail on bond later that day. If convicted, Brunner could face up to a decade in prison. No credible allegation of voter fraud. Voter fraud doesn't exist. Nothing to see here. Let's keep going. From Newsweek, Detroit election worker alleges she directly observed voters coach to pick Biden. From Matthew Impelli. A Detroit election worker has alleged that she directly observed fellow election workers in the city coach voters to cast their ballots for Joe Biden, according to a new affidavit. The affidavit, which was posted to Twitter by GOP spokesperson Elizabeth Harrington, outlines claims made by Jesse Jacob, a Detroit elections worker, during the 2020 presidential election. I directly observed, on a daily basis, City of Detroit election workers and employees coaching and trying to coach voters to vote for Biden and the Democrat Party, Jacob alleges in the affidavit. I witnessed these workers and employees encouraging voters to do straight Democrat ballot. And that is a signed affidavit. It's still, at this point, a he said, she said, but it's... Jesse Jacob has signed this under threat of criminal penalty if she is lying, saying that, yes, this is what she saw. So, either this actually happened or she's going to jail for perjury. The affidavit also claims that Jacob was instructed by her supervisor to adjust the mailing date of these absentee ballots to be dated earlier than they were actually sent. The supervisor was making announcements for all workers to engage in this practice. According to the affidavit, Jacob worked at the election headquarters in Detroit for most of September, but then was moved to a satellite office in October. You don't say. The affidavit also claims that Jacob was instructed by her supervisor not to ask, for a driver's license or any photo ID when a person was trying to vote, and Jacob alleges that she observed a large number of people coming into the satellite location to vote in person, but they had already applied for an absentee ballot. These people were allowed to vote in person and were not required to return the mailed absentee ballot or sign an affidavit that the voter lost the mailed absentee ballot, Jacob claims. So, we'll see what happens off of this here, but remember, there's no credible evidence ever, anywhere, of any sort of voter fraud, and this is just a made-up thing that President Trump said. Let's keep going. From Political Light, publication out of the UK. I can't read the headline because of the great big newsletter article that they put up in front of here, but Maidengate is going to be a thing off of this here. And this is another one that's completely fascistic about their ad blocker software, so bear with me on this one here. Voters across America have alleged votes cast in their maiden names or former names in some states that handed Biden a victory, adding more weight to President Trump's claim of mass voter fraud. One American claimed that she had discovered that people are voting on behalf of them in other states using their maiden names. Another Twitter user wrote, "I'm currently registered to vote in 3, possibly 4 different states. My ex-husband's last name, my current husband's last name, and my maiden name." The term Maidengate has started a trend in some parts of America upon the revelations, with dozens of voters checking if votes were cast with alternate names or names that they used to use. Stop the Steal, a group campaigning for President Trump amid his legal fight, has said, "This is an example of a peculiar type of abuse in our elections." Some married women vote in one state under their current name, while someone, a political predator, casts a vote in that same state or a state which the woman previously lived under a previous or maiden name. This same technique may affect adopted persons, the divorced, people who change their names, and/or transgendered persons. A Twitter user named Lauren discovered that her mother was a victim of the alleged voter fraud. And here is a way to check and see, state by state, it looks like they've got all of them too, whether or not you have voted in multiple elections. I am actually going to call over to the city hall in the city that I used to live in and see if there was a vote cast for me over there, because we didn't do a purge of the voter rolls here in Wisconsin this past year, in spite of the fact that the Supreme Court ruled that they had to. There was not one this year. So I'm very curious to see if I actually voted over in the next town over that I used to live in. And if I did, there's going to be problems. Furthermore, I'm also going to be checking in the Dane County Register because I used to live up closer towards Madison. And that's something that I would expect to see coming out of Dane County, to make sure, just to pad the numbers a little bit here. All right, so that's what we're seeing off of this here, so definitely going to be checking in on that. Let's keep going here from Newsweek. Fox News host caught on hot mic reacting to the guest denying Joe Biden as president-elect. What is happening? From John Jackson. Fox News host Sandra Smith was caught responding incredulously to a guest casting doubt on the legitimacy of Joe Biden being declared the president-elect. While the guest spoke of uncertainties about the results, Smith is still on screen, with a hot mic picking up her confused and frustrated reaction. The guest was Cleta Mitchell, a Washington, D.C.-based lawyer who was arguing on behalf of President Trump's continued legal fights against the election results. Mitchell was also objecting to Fox News and other media outlets calling Joe Biden the winner. Remember, just because CNN or even Fox News says who's the president doesn't make them president, Mitchell said to Smith's co-host, Trace Gallagher. What? Smith said at this point, looking up in disbelief, appearing to be unaware that she was being picked up on a hot mic. While Mitchell continued speaking, Smith then interjected in an angrier tone. What is happening? Like Trace, we've called it. Mitchell was either unable to hear Smith or chose to ignore her as she continued speaking. She said, "So I think everybody wants to know this was done properly and legally and that we can trust the results. And I think that we have to look at every one of these concerns." Yeah, Gallagher replied, I think that's a very good point there. I agree with that. Gallagher then turns the conversation over to fellow guest Steve Mulroy, a University of Memphis law professor clip. The clip was shared on Twitter by internet video journalist Timothy Burke and quickly went viral. The America's Newsroom broadcast from which the clip came aired on Saturday afternoon. Here's the moment captured by Burke and shared on his Twitter account. Oh, good. We can get this. We can hear this. Get your ears on.
Over whoever is decided to be the president. Remember, just because CNN says, or even Fox News says that somebody's president doesn't make them president. So I think everybody wants to know that this was done properly and legally.
What is happening? Like Trace, we've called it.
And I think we have to look into every one of these concerns.
Yeah, and I think Cleta makes a very good point.
Says, or even Fox News says that somebody's president doesn't make them president. So I think everybody wants to know that this was done properly and legally.
What is happening? Like Trace, we've called it.
So I think everybody wants to know that this was done properly and legally.
What is happening? Like Trace, we've called it.
Properly and legally.
What is happening? Like Trace, we've called it.
Properly and legally.
What is happening? Like Trace, we've called it.
On the hot mic. Thank you, Sandra Smith, for confirming what I've been saying for months and months while people continue to say, oh, it's faux news, they're just in the pocket for President Trump. Yeah, no. All major media outlets have a left-wing bias at this point. With the exception of Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson. Well, Tucker Carlson's even been shifting on it, but Sean Hannity, who will kneel down and suck off President Trump at a moment's notice. So that's what we saw off of that one here. Let's keep going. From The Blaze. Let's not have any lectures. Mitch McConnell scolds hypocritical Dems about the results of the election. From Carlos Garcia. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell ripped into Democrats who hypocritically called on President Trump to concede the election. McConnell addressed the demands from the other side of the aisle in a speech Monday on the Senate floor. The president has every right to look into allegations and to the request to recount under the law, and notably the Constitution gives no role in this process to wealthy media corporations. The projections and commentary of the press do not get to veto power over the legal rights of any citizen, including the President of the United States. McConnell said, "Let's not have any lectures, no lectures, about how the president should immediately, cheerfully accept preliminary election results from the same characters who just spent 4 years refusing to accept the validity of the last election and who insinuated that this one would be illegitimate too if they lost again. Only if they lost," he continued. Democrats have accused the president of ignoring the results of the election after most national media outlets declared former Vice President Joe Biden the victor. The president has claimed numerous times that he has won the election and that the Democrats are committing voter fraud to steal the election. McConnell went on to say the process was proceeding as it was intended. "Our institutions are actually built for this. We have the system in place to consider the concerns, and President Trump is 100% within his rights to look into allegations or irregularities and weigh his legal options," McConnell said. The Senate Majority Leader went on to remind the Democrats about the comments from the former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, who publicly advised Biden not to concede if the election results don't go his way. "A few legal inquiries from the president do not exactly spell the end of the republic," he added. McConnell also pointed out that the election appeared to be completely free of any significant foreign intervention in the U.S. election. So that is from McConnell there. I read his entire statement, so we're not going to watch the video for that one. But yeah, let's not have any lectures. You should all be questioning everything, no matter who wins, all the time. The government is going to try and pull the wool over your eyes regularly, and you should always, always, always be questioning everything. Let's keep going. Got just a few more here, and then we'll do Twitter trending for the day and head on out of here. What role could the Supreme Court play in the election? This is apparently readers only, even though it wasn't in the readers only section over at the Daily Wire. Okay, that takes another one up off of this here. From CMT News. Never thought that I'd read from CMT News on this program. Morgan Wallen, Chase Rice, and others want concerts to return after weekend of large crowd gatherings. From CMT.com staff. While country artists continue to be personally plagued with a COVID-19 diagnosis, Lee Brice and Tyler Hubbard just this week. Other artists are out there trying to get back into making music for a living. And when they looked around and saw college football games with fans filling seats in a socially distanced way with diminished capacity, but still, they started to wonder why not concerts. And it stands to reason that if 25,000 fans can fill the University of Texas's Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, why can't live music happen? And if the presidential election celebrations can happen all over the country with no restrictions on attendance, why not live music? That's what country music artists like Morgan Wallen, Brian Kelly, Chase Rice, and Michael Ray, and Chris Lane are asking themselves this week after 9 months of silence. Okay, so first off, pop country sucks. I'm going to put that one right out there. But furthermore, I know I'm getting old at this point because I only recognize one of the names in that list. And here are some of the pictures and Instagram stories they're putting out. Knew we were waiting on the election since March when this shit show started, from Brian Kelly. I am Chris Lane. Is blank. Adam Schefter. This can happen, yet we can't have live concerts. Legit makes no sense. People are partying in the streets everywhere in this country, yet we can't have concerts. Brutal. Chase Rice says, great news, y'all. These concerts are coming back. Morgan Wallen, the hypocrisy is unreal. If you don't agree with me, fine, we can still be friends, but I have a family, band, and crew that need to be provided for and taken care of. If it's okay for us to party in the streets with no social distancing, then we can book shows right now. And then another one from Morgan Wallen that says, time to start booking shows. Last one from Michael Ray Music says, so it looks like we can go back to our tour, right? So yeah, and then of course now they go on to talk about the vaccine that's going to save the world on top of all this. So, and after the news on Monday morning that a vaccine can be closer than we think, thank you so much Pfizer and BioNTech, Maren Morris is cautiously optimistic that it will mean good news for country artists and their fans who have been waiting patiently for live music to return since the abrupt shutdown in mid-March. If you think that anybody who listens to country music is going to take that vaccine, you are out of your fucking mind. But that's what we're going to see off of this one here. So, yeah, I have no idea who any of these people are. But I've listened to the country stations here and there, and it's all pop at this point. So, I'm not interested. I'm over it. From the Blaze, BLM and anarchist groups call to burn it down, berate Biden supporters. You are a bunch of fools. From Paul Saka. While there were massive celebrations across the country after several news outlets declared Joe Biden the winner of the 2020 presidential election, there were also groups marching against President Trump and in opposition to the reported president-elect. There were large crowds of Biden supporters partying at the Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. on Saturday. There were also clear other groups who were not in such of a festive mood. There was a crew of black-clad demonstrators, many holding umbrellas, marching toward Black Lives Matter Plaza. They held a large sign that read, "Free the people, fight the power, fuck the police, defund, disarm, disband." Another sign said, "Burn down the American plantation." The group chanted, "What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. If we don't get it, burn it down, burn it down." The mob chanted, "Fuck Trump, fuck Biden, no more presidents." Content warning, explicit language. Ron, you saw it there. Explicit language. You're gonna have to do earmuffs. Let's hear what they had to say.
Take it to the streets and fuck the police! We are the people We want justice for black people! Black lives matter! Black lives matter! No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace! We've been out here all fucking summer! Move! Move! Back! Get the fuck out the way!
So that's what we saw from BLM and Antifa marching down in Washington. A group protesting for racial justice interrupted the Biden supporters celebrating to educate them about white supremacy, regardless of the white man you put in office. This'll be good. I promise. I haven't even listened to this, and I know this'll be good. They're raising awareness about Karen Hilton's death. No matter who is president, black, brown, and indigenous people continue to be endangered at the hands of police and ICE. I don't even know who Karen Hilton is.
to be in office.
Because Biden is going to be in office.
Somehow that black people
Somehow the black people
are not gonna die in the hands of the police.
are not going to die in the hands of the police.
So while you're celebrating, we're gonna read you some facts about Quran Hilton. So you remember, regardless which white man you put in office, they are holding hand by hand. They are holding side by side. And fulfilling the image of white supremacy. And fulfilling to be in office.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was going to be entertaining. I have no idea who Karan Hilton is. I have no idea. What does Ford Fisher have to say? The anti-fascist they-them collective marched into the Biden celebration party outside the White House.
Just because Biden is in office
Just because Biden is in office
does not mean that our struggle is over.
does not mean that our struggle is over.
Just because Biden is in office
Just because Biden is in office
does not mean that you will be walking on sunshine.
does not mean you will be walking on sunshine.
It does not mean that it will be good in the heart.
It does not mean it will be good in the hood.
If you believe
If you believe
that Black Lives Matter, that Black fathers matter,
that black fathers matter,
that Black futures matter,
that black futures matter,
that aspiring Black young adults matter,
that aspiring black young adults matter,
that Black dreams matter,
that black dreams matter,
that Black youth matter,
that black youth matter.
that Black
Alright, that's enough of that one there. For all of you fucking journalists, for all of you white liberals who have been celebrating getting drunk off your asses about Biden winning the election, you are a bunch of fucking fools, the anarchist group told Biden supporters before marching on. Get it together.
For all of you fucking journalists,
For all of you fucking journalists,
for all of you white liberals
for all of you white liberals
who have been celebrating
who have been celebrating
getting drunk off your asses
and drunk off your asses
about Biden winning this election,
about Biden winning this election,
you are all a bunch of fucking fools.
you are all a bunch of fucking fools.
Get it together. Get it together.
Get it together.
Shit together.
Get your shit together.
And keep this in mind.
And keep this in mind.
You are using this plaza
You are using this process
as a tourist attraction.
as a tourist attraction.
You are all acting
You are all acting
like this is fucking Disney World.
like this is fucking Disney World.
This is not fucking Disney World.
This is not fucking Disney World.
You have all colonized this space for your own benefit.
For your own benefit.
We will not have it here.
We will not have it here.
We are not going anywhere.
Does this not sound like a religious sacrament? The preacher going out and saying the words, and then the religious following coming out and going along with it? Because that definitely does sound like a religious sacrament to me. And that's exactly what it reminded me of as I was listening to it. Like, when I used to be in church and we would do like a psalm or something, and the preacher man would sit and read the psalm, and then the rest of the, one line by line, and then the rest of the congregation would repeat it back to him. That's exactly what that sounds like. So yeah, that's what they're doing in D.C. right now because they think that Biden got elected. And it is what it is. All right. I got one more here, then we'll do Twitter trending and head on out of here. So, from the Daily Wire, sex assault charge against Jacob Blake dropped in a plea deal, feminist silent. From Ash Shao. Kenosha prosecutors have dropped the sex assault charge against Jacob Blake following a plea agreement. Blake became the national hero after he was partially paralyzed by a police officer shooting him in the back on August 23rd. Police had been attempting to arrest Blake for allegedly breaking into the home of a woman he knew and then sexually assaulting her. Blake had a felony warrant for his arrest over this allegation at the time the shooting happened. The New York Post reported on this woman's claims. As the Daily Wire had previously reported, the police officer who shot Blake 7 times while attempting to arrest him said that he made the decision to shoot after hearing a mother desperately pleading, "He's got my kids, he's got my keys." The police officers involved in the incident maintained that Blake resisted arrest and was holding a knife when he was shot. The knife was found on the floorboards of the car Blake was driving. Now the sexual assault charges against Blake have been dropped as part of a plea deal, the New York Times reported. Blake pleaded guilty to 2 counts of disorderly conduct in order to get the third-degree sexual assault charge dropped. Honestly, Your Honor, although I pled guilty to this, I don't consider myself to be guilty, Blake told Judge Bruce Schrader, the Kenosha News reported. I pretty much took this opportunity to get to see my children quicker. Blake also said that he did not sexually assault the woman making the allegations against him. Blake's attorney, Patrick Cafferty, said dropping the charge meant prosecutors were acknowledging that, ultimately, the state could not prove it in court. Walworth County District Attorney Zeke Wiedenfeld told the outlet that the sexual assault charge was dropped in part because the accuser refused to cooperate with prosecution. Because she's going to get that money because that dude is loaded at this point. This was an agreement reached partly because the victim in this matter was not responsive to the subpoenas to appear in court, Wiedenfeld said in the court. The usual feminist suspects have remained silent about the sexual assault charge getting dropped. Typically, these feminists claim accusers don't cooperate with the police because they're afraid police don't believe them or because legal process is too long or too traumatizing. Because Blake became a national icon, leading to even more riots in cities across the country as people demanded U.S. cities defund the police, feminists remain silent on the sexual assault charge. Well, believe all women, unless they found a way to make an opportunity. And yes, if you remember from the GoFundMe, this dude is now fucking loaded. He is loaded. So yes, I mean, I'm not saying that there's malintent from this, but all I'm saying is as soon as it was found out that he had a whole bunch of money, all these sexual assault things just dropped. All right, that's going to be it for the news today. Now we will do Twitter trending and head on out of here. So let's get that up and see what we've got here. Number 1 trending for the day, hashtag Biden One Day. We just made hashtag Biden One Day the number 1 trend in America. Retweet if you agree Joe Biden is our president-elect and that makes you happy. MAGA 2020, Trump 2020. This was our mentality in 2016. It's time for you to do the same and encourage Trump to concede. There's no voter fraud. Hashtag Biden One Day. Republicans don't want to admit that the day is hashtag Biden One Day. Apparently it's Biden One Day in spite of the fact that at least one outlet has overturned the call, and now we're going to go and start looking into this. Please concede so that they don't look into the voting too closely. All right, that's number 1. Number 2, skipping Tuesday vibe. Number 3, Major League. Film fans are choosing which 3 baseball movies they would save. You can only save 3. Which one do you save? Let's see how many of these I've actually seen. Two. I've seen 2 out of these movies. So those are the only ones I can speak to. You can only save 3. Which 3 do you save, by the way? The Babe, 42, League of Their Own, Sandlot, Little Big League, Rookie of the Year, Right Men Out, I don't know what that one is, Moneyball, Major League, 61, The Rookie, Mr. Baseball, Bad News Bears, Field of Dreams, and I don't know what that one is either. So you can only save 3. Which one do you choose? All right, next one here, Semper Fi. November 10th marks the 245th anniversary of the United States Marine Corps. Semper Fi. Marines. November 10th marks the 245th anniversary of the United States Marine Corps. Semper Fi. All right, and then the last one that we're going to do is Xbox. Microsoft launches its next generation consoles, Xbox Series X and Series S. So there's new Xbox out, apparently. I've never owned an Xbox, so I don't care. But for those of you who are Xbox gamers, there is a new Xbox out, apparently today. So we'll see what happens there. And that is going to be it for the show for the day here. Thanks everybody who came by and hung out with me today. We will read the names and thank you properly at the end of the week. So make sure if you're lurking that you don't just sit there and not talk to us, because we do want to hear from you. We will be back here tomorrow with more news and more contemporary. I'm sure that a lot of this is going to get a lot more contentious as we go along. So stay tuned. Absolutely. And remember, don't go to your mainstream outlets for everything. Use your mainstream outlets to aggregate stuff and then go start doing research. Because they're good for telling you what the headline is and what's on top, but there's always more lying under the story. So just remember that. And we will see you next time for more contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.